Hello everyone, I'm Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. 2 videos in a row, right? We're back with another Today in Julie Andrews History video, and today we're talking about Cinderella, specifically Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella. There have been plenty of versions of Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella over the years. There's the one from 1997 starring Brandy and Whitney Houston, and I reckon if you did a poll about which version of Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella people knew, I think it would probably win. It seems to be a bit of a cult classic / fan favourite. Then before that, in 1965, there was one starring Leslie Ann Warren. And in 2013, the stage musical hit Broadway. But today we're talking about the one Julie was in, which was the OG live broadcast from 1957. It is currently the only version of Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella that I have seen, but I am thinking I might do a comparison video where I compare all 3 of these, see who gets the number 2 spot and who gets the number 3 spot. So let me know if that is something you would like to see. Or let me know if you want me to include the stage version as well, because it is coming to Sydney later this year and I am so excited. I found out the other day that Nicholas Hammond himself is going to be in it. That's right, Friedrich himself, huge fanboy for his own movie, is going to be in Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella. So let me know if you want me to wait until after I've seen the show to do that video and compare all 4 of them, or whether you just want it to be the 3 movie versions. But anyway, when I get around to it, I'll obviously have to watch the others, because the only version I've seen is the 1957 one with Julie. Not only was this the original version, but it was also pretty much written for Julie. That's right, Rodgers and Hammerstein wrote a musical for Julie that wasn't The Sound of Music. In fact, this came before The Sound of Music. And by that I mean before the stage version of Sound of Music. Sound of Music was Rodgers and Hammerstein's last project. So yes, they essentially wrote this for Julie to star in, and it took place during a 2-week window she had off from My Fair Lady, because she was still performing in My Fair Lady at the time. And this wasn't actually a stage musical. As I said, the stage version of this musical only came out in 2013. This was instead a live TV broadcast. The version you're able to watch nowadays, link in the down below if you want to watch it for free on YouTube, was in black and white, but the original broadcast was actually in colour. And about 107 million people tuned in to watch it, which was, at that time, the largest amount of people that had tuned in for a television show. In addition to that, it also got 3 Emmy nominations. I don't think it won any of them. In addition to Julie, the cast included Elka Chase as her stepmother, Edie Adams as her fairy godmother, Alice Ghostley and Kay Ballard as the stepsisters, John Cypher as the prince, and Howard Lindsay as the king. Yes, that Howard Lindsay, the guy who, along with Russell Crowe, wrote the libretto for Sound of Music, and his real-life wife, Dorothy Stickney, played the Queen. I'll talk about some of the specifics, but I'm sure I don't need to give you a plot summary or anything like that. I'm sure you all already know the story of Cinderella. As I said, Howard Lindsay and Dorothy Stickney were the couple who played the King and Queen, and they were actually married in real life. And they, along with Julie, steal the show, in my opinion. They remind me a lot of the King and Queen in both Shrek and Ever After. And yes, I know Julie played the Queen in Shrek, but I absolutely love them. They play off each other so well.
His Royal Highness Christopher Rupert
Maisie.
Windermere Vladimir.
Maisie! I know all his names. I'm his father.
The first time Julie met Rodgers and Hammerstein was when she auditioned for their show called Pipe Dream. I'm pretty sure I have mentioned it. I think I talked about it in my video in My Fair Lady. Because after she'd performed, Rodgers came up to her and said, "Have you been auditioning for anything else?" And she mentioned she had been auditioning for My Fair Lady. And he said, "If they ask you to do that one." And of course she did. Which was actually good when it came to this, because had she done Pipe Dream, Cinderella would probably not exist, since it pretty much was written for her specifically. Ted Chapin, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, who's the head of the Rodgers and Hammerstein organisation, said that Cinderella was probably the greatest screen test Julie could have for Sound of Music.
Who knew whether it ever occurred to anybody at the time, but certainly when you look at her doing Cinderella, you realize, oh, I can see the beginnings of Maria von Trapp in that performance.
There are definite moments in the production where you can see similarities to her portrayal of Maria, especially during the love songs. There are definitely similarities to Something Good in Do I Love You Because You're Beautiful. And speaking of that, the songs. It's Rodgers and Hammerstein. enough said. My favourite song is definitely In My Own Little Corner.
I'm a girl, men go mad for love, the game I can play with a cool and confident kind of air. Just as long as I stay in my own little corner, all alone in my own little chair. I can be whatever I want to be.
But in addition to the songs being incredible, they also really fit the theme of the story, which is very realistic. Compared to other versions of Cinderella, Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, or at least the original 1957 one, has a very realistic approach. And that is one of my favourite things about it. I have made a whole video about it, but I'm just going to briefly go over it again. Going with a realistic approach was very intentional, and I think it really worked in their favour. Cinderella as a character is often seen as being very passive and a damsel in distress, which is completely unfair because it's completely untrue. But even though it is completely unfair, she still is seen that way a lot of the time. And I think because of how realistic they played this version, they managed to avoid that. It is a fairy tale in that it is the story of Cinderella, but that's the only way, I think. As I said, the King and Queen remind me a lot of the King and Queen in Ever After, and I think it is just as modern as Ever After, which for 1957 means it's light years ahead of its time. For something based on a fairy tale, it is constantly pointing out how real life isn't always magical. There's a scene between the Queen and the Prince where she says to him that he might never see Cinderella again, and that he needs to be prepared for that.
She was real that night. If she doesn't come back, she'll never be real again. Will she? Chris, be honest with yourself. Does your future happiness really depend upon your finding her?
When the fairy godmother first shows up at Cinderella's house the night of the ball, she tells her that she shouldn't put too much faith in wishes and dreams.
Well, you get to lean on them too much. You get in the habit of sitting back and expecting them to do all the work for you. You've got to help yourself.
And while obviously she grants Cinderella's wish to go to the ball, because as proactive as Julie's Cinderella is, she's not magic, fairy godmother makes sure Cinderella really, really, really wants to go. And when the king's men are all off searching for Cinderella, yeah, because the prince isn't doing anything like that. Honestly, the prince is kind of boring. John Cypher did a great job at playing him, but character-wise, he's kind of meh. Anyway, when the king's men are all off searching for Cinderella, they get to her house and they find she's not there. And why is she not there? Because hearing that the prince is looking for her, she's run off to go find him. Even Disney didn't do that. And I mean 2015 Disney, not 1950 Disney. She doesn't run straight to the castle and pound on the door going, "I'm the girl who has the slipper." But when they catch her in the garden, she says she was specifically there to see him.
What are you doing in the palace gardens?
I came to see... It doesn't matter, I'll go.
So she definitely went to go get the prince and not just run away because she needed a place that made her feel better. There are a few other, I don't want to say weird, but interesting things about this version. For instance, she actually knows the fairy godmother beforehand. Honestly, I don't know what to think of the fairy godmother. Idioms does a great job, but she's kind of interesting as a character. As I said, she tells Cinderella that you can't put too much faith in wishes and fairy godmothers because then you end up leaning on them too much and you don't do anything yourself. But during the bit where she points out to the guards that Cinderella's in the garden and jokes that they should put the slipper on her because then she'll have a nice memory in jail.
Well, it was His Highness's orders to try the slipper on everybody, but I don't
Oh,
think
but
that
as long as she's here, why don't you? It'll give her something to remember while she's in jail.
I never know how to feel during that bit. The other thing is that compared to other versions of Cinderella, her stepmother and stepsisters aren't that horrible to her. They're a bit more sympathetic than they are in other versions, especially at the end when Cinderella's getting ready for her wedding, and the stepmother's just so happy about having a family member marry into the royal family. In most other versions, if something happened like that, it would be now they suddenly care about her because royalty But no, to me it actually feels very genuine. So I don't know if other people like the way the stepmother and stepsister's relationship is to Cinderella in this version, but I really like it. Also, her ball gown is gorgeous. And no, I'm not talking about the one she wears in all the promo images, though that one is gorgeous. I'm talking about the one we actually see her wear in the film itself. Like, this looks like something somebody might actually wear to a ball today. The promo one's definitely a bit more costumey. I don't know why they had a different one for all the promos. And so, there you go. Those are all my thoughts on the 1957 version of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. It probably is 99.9% because of Julie, but it is absolutely my favourite version of Cinderella out there. And as I said, you can watch it for free on YouTube, link in the down below. So if you've seen it, tell me your thoughts on it. If you haven't, go watch it and then come back and tell me your thoughts on it. What's your favourite song? And if you have seen other versions of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, tell me where it ranks against those. Oh, I'm so excited to see the musical later this year, especially now that I know Nikki's gonna be in it. That's everything I've got for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to like and subscribe. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in my video next time. So long, farewell!